Welcome to New Frontier Cast. Today we're talking early New Frontier craft. Now this is the first storytelling podcast where I'll only be talking briefly, and for pretty much the entire podcast it'll be both me and the guest talking. So this is one of two podcasts where I'll be talking about New Frontier Craft's history in detail. I know the Why New Frontier Craft podcast was a history, but it was just the summary. This one will be going into the events in a lot more detail. The other podcast that'll be History of New Frontier Craft will be Origins of New Frontier Craft, and that's what led up to New Frontier Craft. And that's going to be a very long podcast. What we're doing here today is going to be a summary of about 3 years, and I'm sure we'll be talking for a little while, but those 2 years that led up to New Frontier Craft were crazy. That could last an entire hour. So be ready for that one. But I don't know when we're going to get that one out, because that's a big podcast. So it's a little out of order, I'm doing this one early New Frontier Craft, and then I'm doing Origins of New Frontier Craft later, so have that in mind. The reason why I'm doing early New Frontier Craft first is because I'm with the guy who was by my side for the most part in early New Frontier Craft, SpaceFrontier. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I guess we'll just dive right into it. So I'll just be kind of saying the points, and if you have any memories of the things, just bounce back any memories. Actually, we'll start off with, when did you discover anything that I made?
I discovered the Quinstones on the second to last 1.7.3 server, which I think might have been your first. Because I played through two servers.
The first 1.7.3.
1.7.3, yeah.
Were you on the whitelist one?
Yeah, I was on both.
Oh yeah, you built a lot of crazy stuff on that whitelist one. That I remember it. Yeah, I remember seeing that in the first New Frontier Craft ad we ever made. The very first one, where.
Yeah, that's it. That was me and Regency.
Yep. Oh wow. I forgot that you were that far back. So yeah, that's basically, I guess you joined in right when I started the history here for early New Frontier Craft. Just kind of to give you guys the setting. So we've been hosting servers for a full year, old Minecraft versions, and we just had our biggest server yet, which was the one New Frontier Craft, or New Frontier Space joined. It was beta 1.7.3 server, and it grew to an immense size in a short time. It was like 1,000 people. We had attracted over the course of a month and a half. But this server grew so fast, and we only had a small group of administrators that it just it got out of hand very, very quickly. The world was destroyed by griefers. We had to shut that one down, and we had to end up setting up a whitelisted server, which was nice, for me at least, because I was the owner of this server that suddenly caught on fire very quickly, both in popularity and in destruction. So going back to a whitelist server was really nice and quiet, but...
I think that was the one that I joined. So I remember joining it near the start, and I played pretty much until the end. Or until, the quote-unquote, secret server came out.
Yeah, I remember, now that I know that you were on that server, I'm starting to remember the build you had on that. I remember Quinn and I exploring your builds and being like, what the heck? Who is this guy? We've had people who had built good stuff before, but, you built these huge, amazing things in survival. I remember, you telling me, I still don't remember it fully. I remember it a little bit, actually, but I don't remember the full extent of it, of when you first joined the Quizstone servers, that I almost banned you.
Yeah, you thought I was cheating for a while.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I think it was a complicated situation where I had died with admin inventory stuff, like sponges, and you end up finding it, and I found it in your inventory, and I was like, how'd you get these? You must have been hacking. Almost killed this guy off our servers.
You had a warp, and I remember it was a really simple warp. I think it was a shop, which is a tiny little building in the middle of nowhere. And behind something, I found a bunch of random stuff. like unobtainable. I remember one was a sponge and one was like a water item, like out of a bucket water.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, nice. And I put it in a chest underground, right? So like just in the middle of nowhere, just a chest under one block of dirt. And I remember I like dug it up to show my friend Regency, who was playing at the time, and you teleported to me, and you were like, what's this? And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get banned.
Dude, you know what's really interesting? I think I said this on the Why New Frontiercraft video of when I almost banned you. That was like the only other time ever since the beginning of like my alpha server that I let someone who I thought had griefed, like I let him go for a second chance. Like it was a long time before I did that again. That was with you, and thankfully the one time I did that again, it ended up being you, our administrator of New Frontiercraft server right now. So,
but like, it was just a really bad situation because I feel like I didn't really do anything wrong. Maybe I should have told you, but I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Because this happened on a previous server I played on in actual 2011, on an actual beta 173 server, which is ultra coincidence. An admin made a jail and he dropped a ton of bedrock. And I picked it up and kept it for years because that server, every time it updated, it went into a new version, but you could take your stuff over.
Oh, wow.
So I just had bedrock for years on that server. I never used it though, but it just reminded me of that. Like it was really like nostalgic to find it, so I didn't really want to throw it away. Like the sponge and stuff. Yeah.
So in the background of now that I didn't have to deal with the big server because we shut that down and put up the whitelisted one, I started developing New Frontiercraft because now I actually had the time without always worrying about the big beta server. And those were the very early versions. Those were the 1.7 versions, and I'll go through those versions briefly. The 1.7.4, it was the very first version instead of 1.7.3. I added stone bricks and the cooked egg. Those were the first things to be a New Frontiercraft. They were very simple additions. What'd you say?
That was the secret server, right? That's what I was.
Yeah, we had the secret server, the New Frontiercraft. Well, we actually didn't even have. I'm trying to remember. I believe it was a secret server, but originally it was actually still beta 1.7.3. We could just connect to it with the New Frontiercraft client, because I didn't make it for multiplayer immediately.
Yeah,
and then at some point I ended up booting up the secret server with an actual New Frontiercraft world, but that was 1.7.7. I was watching the video where I first released the first version of New Frontiercraft 1.7.4. It was just hilarious how much I hated modern back then. I spoke of it like it was the devil's handiwork, man. It was like, modern Minecraft has twisted the sense of adventure, and I will recreate it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just got bored of it. Like, I instantly disliked.
That's how it was for most people, but I just had full-out hatred for it back then. And I sometimes go back and see that in the old videos. I just speak of it like it was just evil, and I just laugh at it but cringe at it at the same time. I don't know what was with me, man. But
I mean, for a while, I just did I did the classic. Like, I went on to Tekkit because Tekkit was a 1.8 thing.
Yep.
Because the generation was so boring. Which they've since fixed that, but it's still a different game. The generation was very boring for a long time, so I went on to Tekkit, and then I just kind of dropped the game completely.
So, in 1.7.5, I experimented with the ore generator for the first time by basically clumping the ores together into giant veins and making them rarer. And I liked it so much that ended up kind of making how I designed early New Frontiercraft for a while, which was basically all the ores ended up being, like, everything that I added in New Frontiercraft were just giant veins that you'd find occasionally, and depending on their tier, they were rarer. I mean, those were some interesting times. I remember 1.7.6 was when I first added the ores, and but they were all useless at the time. I just had them added in, and that's when I also started the secret New Frontiercraft server with the actual New Frontiercraft world.
Because it used to be a jar, right, for quite a while. It was just like a jar file that was handed to people.
It was a little illegal.
Yeah, I don't know how much we can say, but I mean, it was just peer-to-peer sharing. It wasn't like
Yeah, that's
online or
that's what it
anything.
was. It would
This
take
was
like
also before the new
2
system where you
seconds
could
to install.
download. Yeah, this was before you could download versions as well. So this was all through like cracked launchers and
Yep.
all kinds of tricks.
Oh yeah. So
This was way before official support because you had to go and find. I remember because I started playing beta subs in 2000, I think 13, but I was searching for them earlier
yep,
on.
that was the
So I
beginning of the
remember
beta wave.
there were no 1.7.3 servers at all. Because I searched for a while, and then I randomly searched again, and there was one server. I can probably mention it because it doesn't exist anymore, and that was Sticky Beta.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I've heard of that.
quite a few people have heard of that server because it was very very big. Because it was the only server. It was a very very nice server, and it lasted for a really long time. And I got quite friendly with the owner because he was a pretty chill guy. And yeah, he just ran out of money. I guess he just lost interest.
Hmm. Um, so yeah, in the 1.7.6 first secret server, we had ores in the ground, and they were all kind of set up that they would be balanced. And because of that, and I only had, like diamond pickaxes, iron pickaxes, just the vanilla tools. I only had added the ores, so it was really hard to play the game because
Yeah, I remember.
iron was kind of the rarity it is now in terms of just like how valuable and hard it is to get. So you couldn't make any tools out of anything else. You just have to go down and dig around for iron forever. But
I mean, the meta was like you had to use tungsten, and then sometimes you'd use iron because steel was just the worst iron, pretty much.
I mean,
At
this
least
was
for me.
this was before I even had tools for New Frontier Craft.
Oh, I don't even remember. I don't think I even played then, to be honest. I know that for
I
some updates, so I kind
I
of
mean,
lost interest.
I remember you playing that server, and this was, I mean, it was up until 1.8.0. Yeah, I mean, you did play that server, because anything before 1.8.0 didn't have tools at all. It was all just the regular vanilla tools,
Oh yeah, I'm
but there
thinking
was
of the
all
wrong
those
server.
ores.
Yeah, yeah. That
So,
was the server that I made that crazy farm on, right?
oh yeah, yeah,
With everyone else. That was a group effort though, but yeah, that was insane.
that was insane. That was really
That's
cool,
no
though.
longer possible so much now because a lot of stuff has been patched in NFC, such
So,
as abusing mob spawners and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. Um, so after 1.7.6, two things happened around the same time. And I started to host beta 1.7.3 servers for others to try to keep the beta community growing around the Quizstone since we'd shut down our main server because the whitelisted server was just not getting any growth. So I also completed New Frontier Craft 1.7.7, which was multiplayer support. I remember that being huge. Like the first time I was able to get my player to connect to the server with New Frontier Craft items in it, I was like, oh man. I still remember that pretty clearly. And that was pretty good at. I mean, that's what started the whole private server for a little while. But eventually, it didn't become secret because eventually we started posting videos on it in a series. Eventually, I got New Frontier Craft on Bucket, which was also pretty big. I still have no idea what 1.7.8 was for New Frontier Craft. It might have just been some texture fixes or bug fixes or something along those lines.
I think it was bugs, right? I remember
Yeah,
there was
I
a
think
bug
it was
in the
bugs.
update. Yeah.
So eventually, I got sick of our quiet little beta whitelist server, so I started another big public 1.7.3 server. And I mean, it only took like a week or two before it started growing insanely fast again, because I was still during, but it was at the end of the beta wave. And around that time, we were making New Frontier Craft public by posting. We posted our first ad, and then we started playing the series on it. And at the time, my recording partner Zexon, he was starting to get kind of sick of Minecraft, and I was still kind of dragging him into recordings, and he'd do it voluntarily. Like he wouldn't put up that much of a fight. New Frontier Craft caught his interest for a little bit, so that was able to get him recording again for a little while. But what happened after that? Oh, on our main public server, which I wish I knew how to set it up better. because I could have gained so many more people from that, but at the time I didn't know how to deal with a serious hacker. I've had hackers on before, but they all had these hacked clients that I was able to figure out how to get rid of them. And this guy was, at the time, he was the biggest hacker I'd encountered because he had something I did not understand. And one of the things he had was he was able to get a proxy IP, which most hackers in the past had not used. And he was able just to keep joining and destroying the server, and I could do just nothing about it. And for 2 days, the server was just in ruin. And even if I'd, load the backup, he just destroyed again within like 20 minutes. It was awful. I still remember like encountering him as he was destroying it, and I was just like demanding why he was doing this. And I still don't really remember his response, which means it was just insignificant. But that was awful. So we were not able to shake him off, and this caused something really interesting to happen because no one could play on the beta server. So this caused a decent amount of our dedicated community to run to New Frontier Craft because New Frontier Craft wasn't hacked. Like, it was a brand new mod. There's no hacked clients for it. What happened next? Oh, I ended up just shutting down the beta server because, he just destroyed it. Like, it didn't matter. Yeah,
it didn't exist. And no one complained either because no one had been playing there for weeks because of the...
Yeah, it was still pretty new. This forced me to jumpstart New Frontier Craft's development because the people who were dedicated to the Quistones channel all kind of ran to New Frontier Craft. So New Frontier Craft was like our escape. It was kind of interesting. So after, what'd you say?
Yeah, that was a fun update because that was kind of like the first time we had randoms on the server.
We finally started getting new people on the server instead of just the admins.
Which was good and bad. It wasn't a perfect system.
We weren't quite ready for it, but I don't really remember that many issues happening when that happened. Because again, it was mostly people who were dedicated and actually knew what the Quistones were doing. Like, when we would launch a big beta server, like, it would attract a whole bunch of people who didn't even know what the Quistones were. Like, somehow they would get the IP from a friend, and we would grow to immense sizes, but only have like 100 subscribers. So,
I think it's because there's thousands of searches every year for 1.7.3 servers, but there's not many videos showcasing them. So if you make a video with the current year and the current month,
I gotta do that at some point here.
If you do that, you will have a lot of traffic funneled your way. That's a very, very easy way to get people. Because if you Google like 1.7.3 server and like 2015, 2016, 17, there's not many videos, but they all have like quite a lot of views, like in the thousands.
Yeah, they're still getting a couple thousand. It's crazy.
Even if they're very, very poor quality videos.
Yeah, it's true. That is very true. Yeah, I just need to make a quality one.
Yeah, if you made a really good one, and your account, like obviously NFC has 100 subscribers plus, which is a decent enough amount. Because a lot of these channels have like no subscribers to, it's just like a guy that makes a quick video.
Yeah.
And they're still getting thousands of views because there's people searching, but not many people making videos for that.
Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna have to make one, so it'll just be like, basically Minecraft beta modded server 1.7.3 New Frontier Craft or something.
The problem is you can't call it like New Frontier Craft 1.8.5 or 4, whatever.
Yeah, I'll have to say modded 1.7.3. They're not gonna understand that.
If you do that, yeah. As long as you don't lie and say like, oh, it's beta 1.7.3, and then it's not. But as long as you put that in the name, it should be fine.
So, let's see. After we'd all run to New Frontier Craft, we started making a New Frontier series, our first series on New Frontier Craft. And eventually, Zexon got sick of me as I was dragging him into a lot of things at the time. Again, I've said this before on an old podcast. I was more selfish at the time. I I just wanted him to do what I wanted, and I was kind of giving him orders to record with me, and eventually he just got sick of me and basically left. I mean, you can see in the 5th episode of the Newer Frontier, like, his motivation to be in the recording is so minimal. Like, I would basically just be like, dude, I'm not going to play anything with you unless you record with me here first. And he'd finally just be like, okay. But, it's poor way of very poor way of dealing with friends, as you can see. So
yeah, that's a real shame because he was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Like even if he I'd like to still speak to him. Like maybe not through beta, but just like through something else, or just as friends. You know, I haven't really spoken to him for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we might be seeing him again soon, but be posted for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I released 1.8.0, that was like the last episode he was in before he left for a little while, and that episode was so bad. Like, it was so cringy because, like, he would like say something like every minute, like 1 or 2 sentences at the beginning, and then a
lot of things that you say are cringy. I don't even remember, or like.
I mean, really, I could just send you the video link, and it's just awful. Like, it was so forced. And
a lot of things that you say are cringy or like was really bad. They're normally like fine.
I don't know. I look back at him and I'm just like, I just wasn't doing things very well because I knew what I was doing in the background, so that's why I was kind of cringy. So after that, there's a few deleted videos that aren't on the Quisims anymore of me like talking to the channel like, okay, Zexon's left. What do we do? That was bad. Like, we lost so many subscribers in one day. It was like 10% of our subscribers left in one day. Oh,
that's
boy.
Really rough.
Yeah. So, 1.8.0 was the first solid version of New Frontier Craft that actually, like, worked, because it was when I first added all the tools of New Frontier Craft. It was the beginning of the tier system. But, boy, it was pretty difficult. We had... Again, it was the huge ore clumps was how everything generated. There's no clouds, there's no multi-veins, there's no real distinct... Like, there would be different sizes of ores for different ore types, but... or there's different sizes of ore veins for a different ore type. Like, boron would be pretty small, but iron spawned in huge veins. But, man, I remember back in that day, like, getting diamonds from... just spawning could take about 20 hours, if I'm not mistaken. Like, that was kind of the average amount of time because they were so rare. At the time, it was 7 tiers, so the metals were placed across a lot more tiers. And, like, it required extreme work ethic, and it was pretty niche because of that. But I mean, the people it attracted because of that were really cool, like you, Waffles, your friends, who would all build these huge, crazy stuff. But it's pretty niche. That's the type it would attract, and the only type it would attract. So,
something.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, something to mention. Something that a lot of people don't seem to get, like understandably don't seem to get, is when we talk about tiers, it means you need one tier to get onto the next one. It doesn't mean it's not like a direct upgrade, if you know what I mean. So you need this tier of metal to progress and mine the next one. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, how come this is better than this?" When it's tier this, and it's each metal is unique in some way, but it just means you need one to get the next.
Yeah. So at the time there were 7 tiers, and back in this day, like, oh my goodness, wood would have the durability of like 8. Right now I think it has around like 30, and in vanilla it had 60, and I put it all the way down to 8, just to give you an idea of, like, because there are 7 tiers, there's a huge difference between tier 0 and tier 7. Or at the time it was tier 1. Wood was considered tier 1 along with stone. But diamonds at tier 7, they were even more overpowered in the original game. Like, I've nerfed them a decent amount because now there's only 5 tiers.
Wasn't there something like 1,000 times rarer? Like over 1,000? I remember something like that being said.
Oh, I don't know if it was 1,000, but let me think briefly. I know...
I swear it was something like 1,024 times. Someone said that to me, and yeah, I can't.
If that's the
Because,
case, I'm
yeah,
insane.
someone dumped a bunch of data in chat. Um, this was when we had Skype still. This is going way back. The Skype group.
I'm trying to remember. I remember back then, Diamond was sort of like osmium level rarity. In fact,
Which makes sense, because I never found it.
it was even rarer than osmium that is right now in the game. Yeah, oh, it's not 1,028. It was 128 times rarer, but that's
Oh,
still
okay.
insane.
That's still a huge amount there.
Yeah, and
I never actually found Diamond in that version.
yeah, I know Ottokin found Diamond like twice, and like someone else found
Really?
Diamond, and that was it. That was it for that entire early server. um,
Which level was that? Was that the
that was the first New Frontier Craft server ever. That was still the server that
that was the fun.
that you had your farming thing on. It was just once we were able to update the 1.8.0, we were actually able to use the ores in a sense.
Did you know on that server we walked something like 15,000 meters away from spawn?
Oh no! I
And,
mean, maybe you told me that, but I don't remember that.
Yeah, but someone made a base like 50 meters away from us, and we both didn't know for a really long time.
Oh,
I mean, it was like over a hill. It was right next to us,
Hmm.
and there weren't many players, so the chances of that is like so small. But that actually happened on that server.
I don't remember that.
But the thing is, they found out first, and then they started stealing stuff from us, and we were like,
Oh, now I remember
"Oh,
that.
one of us is stealing. Who is it?" And everyone blamed Regency because everyone always blames Regency, but it wasn't him. It was some random guy called like Professor Apple, and like
Oh, yeah, I
Chromium
remember that.
was the other guy. And the reason I found out was because I logged on, and I saw them stealing one of the secret discs. I won't say how to get it, but I watched them like steal it, like physically pick it up, and then they kind of twigged that they saw me in the distance, but they didn't want to give up their name tags, so they made a tiny hole and just hid in it. But I could see that it had recently been broken, so I like opened it up and just took a screenshot and sent it to you.
If it was a secret disc, that might have been the one after, because secret discs were 1.8.2.
This was I don't want to give away which one it is, but this was the first one we added, if that makes sense. I remember there was
Yep.
only one for a while.
Yeah, I mean that might have been in like development. It was just that one, if that was correct.
Yeah, it was when there was only one.
Let's see. What happened next? Oh, talk about the first New Frontier Craft world. Eventually, I found a new recording partner, which ended up being Indie Chief. At the
Yeah,
time,
what actually happened
he
to
was
that?
drummer boy.
There was
I-
a couple episodes and then little, which is a shame because that was quite good.
Yeah, I mean he was just with me for a little while. He was also busy. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Quinn and I were best friends since like 5th grade, whereas Indie Chief I just met him online, so things often didn't line up very well.
Yeah,
And,
'cause I remember he originally made a video on it, and that's how
Oh yeah,
we kind of like got to know him.
yeah,
Because
I remember that. I was like, you know what,
we
this guy has
saw
a
him
really
on
chill voice. I'll record with him because
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
little bit more higher energy.
He's
And
a
then-
chill guy. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, and then after that, we released our like really solid New Frontier Craft ad, not the one we have today, but the original one that I kind of called New Frontier Craft the answer to your nostalgia, and that was that ad if you remember that one.
Yeah, because there's been 3 now, right?
Yeah, there's been
Not
3.
recently, there was 2
This
others.
actually been like 3.5. There was another one where after this one I created one for Secure, which I'll be talking about that. And in that ad I also included New Frontier Craft at the end. But
I don't remember that. Did that ever
yeah,
get released?
I could send you a link to it after we're done our podcast. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Maybe
it was
we
kind
can
of a
remember it.
random one I made amidst everything just to try to get some more interest again. But we'll talk about that one later. That sort of original good New Frontier Craft ad still has over like 1,000 views today, and that was able to get New Frontier Craft some publicity to start out our first New Frontier Craft public server with a small flow of people at least on the 1.8.0 server. I can't remember if we changed the world or not. for the first decently public server. I don't think we did. I'm trying to remember. I know there was the one where, and here's the next bullet point, is eventually Zexon returned, and it created a trio that recorded for a little bit. And that was like a mini golden age of New Frontier craft. The growth was about the same it is today, but we were doing very little to do that. And it was a really cool world, so I think it was still the one we started out with. And I also released New Frontier Craft 1.8.1 during this period of time, which added old sounds and a lot of little tweaks and polish to the game. That stuff I added at the same time as adding little tweaks to just beta, like dead bushes dropping sticks. That was good time, 1.8.1.
Yeah, I remember that was like a lot of content, but it was small. Like a large amount of small things.
Yep, that's what 1.8.1 was. And yeah, I mean, I remember at the height of that server, we were growing at like 2 new people a day, which is basically what we're growing at right now. So for, all the way back then, for that version of New Frontier Craft to be growing like that was a mini golden age of New Frontier Craft. Because, Zexon and I kind of like forgave each other about the stuff that happened in the past, and we got back together, and we're doing it with Indie Chief, and we created a really cool trio. Those were just a brief little golden age.
I hope that happens again.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of happening again. So
I mean, I know that the Zexon is like kind of semi-active. I've seen him in the Discord.
Yeah, he's been on the server a couple times, and people have seen him on the server. So
really? Oh, I've missed that. That's a shame.
Yeah, you haven't seen him on the server?
No.
Yeah, I guess that's because he comes on at night, because that's when he's not working. So yeah, he's been on the server a few times.
I think Waffles in it and Bot Kieran on the episodes, but we normally join at the same time because we're in the same time zones. And as we go off to sleep, because of like work or college or whatever, everyone gets on because at around 11.
I mean, it's kind of like 2 phases. It's like the morning crew that I call it, and that's everyone in Europe, and then there's the American crew at night that joined.
Yeah, because when it's I think at least on the East Coast, when it's like 11 p.m. For us, it's like 4 p.m. for you guys, which is like when you're kind of coming back from whatever.
Yep.
That's when you're kind of coming home, so...
Yeah,
it's a shame that we just miss each other, really.
Yeah, Quinn normally comes on at 9 p.m. around here, which would be like far past midnight at your end, so...
Yeah, which would be like a normal time for me to go on, but not in your time zone, if that makes sense.
Yep. So after the thing that killed the little golden age that New Frontier Craft was starting to go through was AF. That was
that was weird.
After the sun was shining brightly on New Frontier Craft, suddenly it went down when AF joined. He was the first hacker, and so far only hacker we've had on New Frontier Craft. Dude, I keep telling myself I loathe the day I see like a public hacked client for New Frontier Craft. Like, I know it'll happen eventually if New Frontier Craft gets big, but I loathe the day I see that.
Does it exist for Tekkit?
What?
Does that exist for Tekkit, actually, now I think about it?
A hacked client?
Yeah, I mean...
I'm sure. I'm sure there's at least something like that. I want to make New Frontier Craft open source at one point.
I see. That will definitely. That's
definitely
the right way to go. In my opinion, you should definitely.
It's the right way. We're just gonna have to make some good security before we do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple things
also,
I want to add
Big
to
Brother.
Security.
Like, what were the 3 big ones? It was like Big Brother, Log, something, and Hawkeye.
Yep.
Those are like the rollback ones, and the ones that like scan.
Yeah, I mean, when I make my own platform is when I'm gonna have to like just make something like that you can just enable.
Yeah, the problem is you could just say, just download it. I'm sure it exists out there, and I know it's been archived by Zyga, who's the right way to say it, Zyga.
Yep.
He has a huge archive of mods. You have to ask him for it because it's on his private Mediafire account. But he has like a premium account in Mediafire, and it's just full of archive mods.
Oh wow!
Like single player plugins, multiplayer mods, everything. And I asked him, he does have it, or someone that knows him has it. They got it from him or something.
Man, I
But
really want to promote the Zyga server a little bit more.
yeah, we should mention that again. He has really nice servers. One which is quite exciting. One of them's an Anarchy server, which is something that I used to play way back. Which this was before PvP servers. It wasn't necessarily PvP, but it just meant there were no rules,
Yeah.
except for no cheating and like no swearing or something. I don't know. Well, oh, actually saying that it was more like no racism. But these servers were almost had no plugins, and maybe had like something like X teams, which is where you would set like a home for your group, and that's it. And you would have to walk super far away from spawn and make a little settlement. But you would have to like kind of trust each other, because maybe one guy joins you and he's like, "Oh,
Waffles was talking about this last time."
Yeah, it's really fun. Because I think what Waffles was playing was factions, which is very different. But this was like it was all trust based, and if you like found a settlement, it was like, do you just steal their stuff and leave, or do you just like burn everything to the ground? It was just really fun. But that doesn't really exist anymore because of the way the game's set up now. It's more like an RPG.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how. I mean, it is basically a PvP Anarchy server. To see how Zyga's server comes out with New Frontier Craft on that. I mean, the diamond sword is going to be so overpowered because it's a 20 heart base. So I mean, if you have any armor on, it's not going to kill you. But if you don't have any armor on, it's always going to kill you.
Yeah. But yeah,
anyways,
the only plugin he has is random spawn, which is fantastic. It's actually quite genius. Because one of the old things on Anarchy servers is a big group would go to spawn, and they would cover it all in lava, and that's it.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out how to turn on.
Game over.
Random spawn works to the point, at least in a server right now, to after you die, you randomly spawn. But he's got to figure out how to do it so that when you first spawn, it's still random, which I think will be interesting. I really want to. I'm trying to utilize this Townie server though. I really want to make that more public. We're going to do another New Frontier episode on that because everyone is still on the main server, and I know a lot of people wanted Townie, so I was experimenting with that on this server. So I've already made.
Really good.
Yeah, after playing around with it a little bit, I'm like, this is really cool, but I'm still gonna keep factions on the main server just because I've got it all
just
set
the way
up
it's set
around
up.
that.
Everyone's claimed the thing.
Yep. Also, like things like shops on the main server, like that wouldn't be possible with Townie because everything needs to be connected in Townie.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's just gonna stay that way.
And you've customized it to the point where it's like, it's no longer what people think it is. If that makes sense, it's not a PvP based thing, which is nice because I like Anarchy servers and I like classic servers, but I don't really care for PvP servers. I always find them a bit boring.
Anyways, we're going like way off topic here. We've already been recording for like 40 minutes, so let's try to get through the history again. So we encountered Af. I don't know how in detail we'll go with our encounter with Af, because I mean
it was weird because he seemed like an okay guy.
It was so weird.
I think I still think he was all right. He just decided to do a lot of weird things.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning he was just being a jerk, and then he was like, "Actually, you have something kind of interesting here. Let me help you develop authentication." So suddenly the sun came back up for New Frontier Craft as he built authentication for us, which of course really beefed up security for New Frontier Craft. And then he joined the administration, New Frontier Craft administration. And then he went crazy again. I don't know. Just tried to grief us again, and we just knocked him out with the authentication he coded for us. So that was
because
a weird
he coded his own. He made his own cheats, and I'm obviously not going to say how, but someone figured out how he personally did it. But he managed to duplicate items using the cheat. It's through a poison plugin and a cheat that he made himself. Who managed to duplicate items, so you would go to spawn and it would just be covered in gems.
Yep, it was just you couldn't even.
It was like indirect griefing because it was just destroying the economy, and and the like ease of the game, because it's like, why would you bother playing when you can just get end game
Yeah, not
stuff?
only that, but because of how I made diamonds back in the day, diamonds were hard to mine if it was just your fist. So you would be there like trying to get out of spawn through diamond blocks. It was weird.
Yeah,
So
that was kind of a weird time.
yeah, that happened. I mean, at the time, I just didn't know Java enough to really understand what he did, but it actually really helped me because I was able to see what he did for authentication, and hence I learned how to like properly modify Minecraft. So it was a really big learning experience for me, and that caused me to learn how to add in books, which was 1.8.3, because that was a huge addition in the beta code. Which was sort of my childhood dream. I remember back in the day of 1.7.3, I was always wishing they'd add books. So after that had happened, I was like, all right, I'm going to add in what I've always wanted, books. And unfortunately, this hasn't been utilized too much. I'm going to utilize it, though. I've got a really cool idea for books. But
the thing is with books is there's always that one person that only uses books. Like there's nothing else, only like makes books. So
yeah,
we just need to find that one person to join the server.
we haven't seen him very much yet. I have not seen a single book on the server, in fact.
I've seen a few offensive ones, but
offensive books.
but nothing serious, yeah.
Let's see.
Also, since this recording has started, 2 brand new people have joined on the server, which is quite nice.
Man, we're getting a couple of new guys here recently. Like, we went through a week there that the growth kind of died down a bit. It was like one new person a day, but now we've gotten back up to 2 or 3 new people a day. It's good stuff. So, after that whole experience with Af, though, because, I mean, he was just so unstable that, initially he griefed our server and we had to shut it down. We didn't know what to do, and then he coded authentication for us. But amidst all this, the actual community of New Frontier Craft and the growth of it stagnated because we couldn't do anything for them. We were trying to deal with this guy. And it took a little while for us to start going back to a slow level of growth, but it was a lot slower than it was earlier because that was basically, by the time we were starting to push New Frontier Craft out again, the beta wave was starting to kind of its end, in a sense, like it was really starting to fall. We still... I call it the beta wave because it was such a huge spike of just beta interest. Again, like Space said, 2013. Like, that was when it really started, and it died out at the end of 2014.
Yeah, it was really fast, because in 2012...
It's not totally dead still. As you can see, like, we still are getting a lot... There's a couple thousand views per just beta server videos. It's just... It was a wave. It wasn't... Now it's just kind of static.
I think that was more nostalgia-based.
Yeah, it was way more nostalgia-based.
Yeah. Most people joining now didn't even play the version, which is really odd to me. They didn't play in 2011.
It's almost like proof telling us that, like, yeah, there's something about beta that Modern doesn't have, because there's kids that, like, played Modern versions that were like, hey, I'm getting bored of this, let's go play beta.
Yeah, which is really weird to me, I guess, but it's good. It's good, though.
Yeah, it's good for us.
Yeah. And there's also loads of controversy right now with paid items. I don't really want to understand it because it just looks gross. But
so 1.8.3 also added in a different orgen, because I was starting to realize that what I thought was the issue originally was just that the ore generator was boring. So 1.8.3 was when I added in different types of orgen, like clouds and multi-veins. And I just made it a lot more unique, but it was still just as hard. And I very quickly discovered it was the difficulty that was getting people, because people came back to it, thought it was interesting, but immediately it had another, like, die out of people, like, just being bored of the game. So I was like, all right, I'm still doing something wrong with New Frontier Craft. So not only that, but 1.8.3 was incredibly buggy. It was laggy. That's when the inventory bug started. But that was not the only bug. That was a bad update.
That was really rough, I remember. That was a rough version.
Yeah. So, I believe it also...
That hard drive bug, that was so weird.
It did some decent damage to the world, yeah. So, we ended up having to drop that world.
Which is a shame, because that was quite a... Although it was not a bad version, but although it was a rough version, quite a lot was built on it. People are
Yeah,
still
it was
excited
a really
about it.
nice world. I'm still gonna. I said this to Waffles last time. I'm gonna say it again. And hopefully, I get to it. I'm gonna try to release that world. I mean, it's only compatible with old versions though, because there's still things like cheese ore and whatnot. But
If you installed multiverse, which I know works in this version, um, we could world edit over a bunch of old builds.
we could try.
I mean, there might be problems with converting the worlds. You'd have to do
Yeah,
that outside of the server first. Maybe simply just removing the conflicting items, then just generating it in.
yeah. In fact, I might even
Uh,
just remove any ores in that because it's so
yeah,
much
because we're
different
just
back
after
then. There's
builds.
the tiers were totally different. The way the tools were totally different. It's just it would make no sense to keep those ores in there. So I would just kind of put it up just to be like, hey, look, like I got the old world back, but not really for like mining purposes at all. So
Yeah, ask Zyger about it because I know that he has multiverse, and I know that he has
I believe I have it too.
Oh,
I
brilliant!
just
Okay.
I just haven't used it.
Apparently, this is also quite interesting. Sweets managed to get Sweets from Betalands,
Yeah,
also a good server. Check it out. He managed to get no, yeah, Log Block working, I think, or Big
yeah.
Brother. One of them he actually managed to get working, which is really really interesting.
Um, I almost got Big Brother working one time. I mean, I'm probably gonna have. I don't think it's gonna be too hard for me to try start up one of those if I have an SQL server. But
Yeah, I was just about to say it's based on SQL, and of course the actual official Big Brother SQL is down, but we can build our own.
yeah,
Also, something I spoke to Indy about, I should probably just mention real quick. It would be nice if all the beta servers had like a global ban list. So if
global.
one
Yeah,
person
that's true.
cheats,
In fact, I could
we can
even.
just say, "Hey guys, like ban this guy," and then we have like a list updated.
Yeah, I could even set that up myself with Alter Vista or whatever that website's called, where it's just like a text file that all the servers read. Huh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
it doesn't even need to be
It
advanced.
would have
Yeah.
to be farther down the road, but I could do that.
Just interesting idea. Yeah.
So, what happened after that? After 1.8.3, I mean, we started growing slowly again, but once I released 1.8.3, again, like, people kind of burnt out for a little bit because the game was still pretty hard, and the game itself was actually pretty buggy. So, New Frontiercraft growth became pretty stagnant. I tried to and I did adapt New Frontiercraft to Optifine, and I kind of included it with the game. Don't tell anyone. But eventually, I asked the creator if I could just keep it in there, and he was like, "No." So
Which is a real shame. But,
yeah,
it is his code. So we
I'm
can't,
tempted to go back and ask him and like have a bunch of people from our channel just like spam it, but
Oh, we definitely. Okay, guys, do not spam him, but we should definitely try again.
uh,
And if he says no, we have to kind of respect that. Yes,
yeah.
it is his code.
So I quickly realized that the problem of New Frontiercraft was that the game was too hard, so I went to work on 1.8.4. I thought it was only going to be like 2 or 3 months of work, but it ended up being a painful year-long journey of trying to figure out how to balance the game, because at the time I still was really believing in the fact that like keeping the game decently hard would like keep your work ethic up and make you build better stuff, but keeping it hard would mean that a lot more people wouldn't find it enjoyable and just kind of wanted to chill out. So even at 1.8.4 ended up being a mess after a year long, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So on the Quizstone channel during this period of developing 1.8.4, because we didn't have like a main server, because we ended up shutting off the 1.8.3 because it was messed up from bugs. And we didn't have any other main servers. I believe all the beta servers were basically offline or like really in the background, that I was hosting, but other people would control them. So for a while we just had random series we tried. I know we tried doing like a Super Hostile. We did random games that we found interesting, like Star Maid and World of Warships. And in fact, shameless plug, I don't have it up yet, but if you guys remember Nervy Word, I'm doing a new series with him on World of Warships because we absolutely love that game. We are hilarious when we play that game, but I'll throw the link in the description when I actually make that channel, but that's not yet. We've got 2 recordings on that, and they're hilarious. But anyways, where was I? I'm trying to remember some other things I tried out in that day. There's one where at the time my girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend, of course, Hannah, I had her play alpha versions. That was kind of fun, but yeah, it was just a bunch of random crap amongst stuff of me showing me testing New Frontier Craft pre any number 1.8.40. Those pre versions were just, I just have so many negative memories attached to that because I was just dragging myself through trying to test this and get it balanced in some form that I didn't really understand, and those were kind of dark times. At one point I invented Secure, which was just beta but with authentication, and that ended up sparking up kind of quickly, but it also burned out really quickly, which was kind of interesting. Like, I remember after our first week of posting that video, like, we'd gotten already like 60 people on that server, but then like another week later, like, no one was playing the server. It was a very strange experience.
Which version was that?
It was Secure. It was just beta
Oh,
1.7.3.
yeah. I think people checked out, were like, oh, cool, and then that was it.
Yep. I mean, I think it was also at the end of the beta wave. I think people were just like, I mean, it was nice if people thought it was really cool to see something with authentication again because better security, but I don't know, people were just kind of bored of beta by that point.
Sweets installed it on his server, and people were like, oh, I don't know how to install it, I can't figure it out. So they lost a couple players, so they just undid it simply because, yeah, it was just easier to keep it without.
Maybe I should kind of I don't really know if I want to bring back up Secure, because that would almost cause competition. But
yeah, I know what you mean. I don't think it should be. I mean, maybe.
But I could make the automatic installer for Secure too.
Yeah, simple stuff like that is nice, but I think the Secure should be just really simple. So if people don't like NFC, they can use the authentication. But I have a feeling that most people will like NFC ever since 0.5, which fixes a lot of things.
Yeah. So, let's see, where were we? So
I think we're at 0.5 now, aren't we? I think we're on the current version.
What'd you say?
Are we talking about the current version now? I think so, right?
I was just, you brought it up, but I'm still at Secure.
Yeah. You're still at Secure, yeah. There's not really too much to say about that. It didn't really last long.
It did not last long at all. It was really cool. I mean, in the span of 2 weeks, like, a bunch of cool things were built on that, but then it just went silent. It was really weird.
Yeah.
So, let's see. What happened after that? I'd been still testing for 1.8.4, still working on that for a while, and that's when I almost gave up on New Frontier Craft. Outside of when AF came around and messed with things. That's when I was getting so bored of developing it, because not only was it really hard to balance the game, and I was basically the only person trying to balance it, because I mean, it was hard and it was painful to test it because of that, and at the same time no one else wanted to really test it. Like, someone would come along and be like, give me 2 tests, and then disappear. Like, it was just bad. So I was about to give up on New Frontier Craft, but a bunch of people were like, no, keep going with this. I think you still will get something out of it, so I kept going with it. Let's see. After another long period of just testing for 1.8.4, I tried to boot up Secure again, just because I realized that I was getting close to 1.8.4's release, so I was going to see if I could get that just another little wave out of Secure to sort of launch 1.8.4 with. Did I mention that? Where did I mention? Oh yeah, Zexon did come back at one point. Oh, he came back during the golden age of New Frontier Craft. I don't know if I mentioned that, but he did come back for a little while, and he was my main recording partner again for a time. And then after the Secure, or actually before I launched Secure, Zexon had quietly left the channel, but that was since I've not actually had a video with Zexon since then. So that was when he actually left. What happened during that? That's when I found Joey, who was also another longtime friend. You might know him as Nervy Word 5570. I mean, he was nice to record with because he had a lot of energy. I mean, it wasn't, Zexon had so much more experience recording with me. It wasn't quite the same, but at least I had someone who I could record with that lived around here that I could just invite to my house and we get something done. So he was with me for quite a while. Actually, he was with me for most of the 1.8.4 that we tried to start that world. After I released 1.8.4, finally, and we ditched the Quizstones channel and made a new Frontier series. So the second New Frontier series. So there's technically like 3 New Frontier series that were supposed to be like the main series. There's the original New Frontier, the second New Frontier, and now the newer Frontier series. And let's see. We ditched, if I didn't say that, we ditched the Quizstones channel and made this one that we're working on now, just the New Frontier craft specifically. And I mean, the beginning of this, I was recording with Joey all the time. That's who the guy was originally. And we started up the 1.8.4 world, which at the time I claimed, 1.8.4, it's like the first official version. This is the world that we can all focus on. It'll be great, because now I won't be removing any worlds. And what do you know? 1.8.4 ended up being too hard still. There was a bunch of things that caused the balance to still be out of whack. One of them was because caves. I didn't understand how caves worked at the time. That was a big thing in 1.8.5, is me changing caves to sort of fit how I actually thought caves worked, but didn't actually work. And that's a whole nother story.
I mean, the thing is, there was a huge break between updates because a lot of things were back-end. Like making the skins work, making authentication have no bugs or back-ends. Or backdoors, I should say. Just all kinds of really small, minor things that don't really affect gameplay, but affect server-sided stuff. So,
yeah.
I think a lot of people miss that out. They're like, "Oh, what is in an NFC? Like, what's really in the game?"
Yeah, I mean,
there's not so much content. It's more that a lot of bugs have been fixed. A lot of server things are better now.
Yeah, that whole year of developing 1.8.4, it was just to rebalance the ores. Like, there's very few actual new things added in a New Frontier craft. So it was really hard to keep people's interest. And again, 1.8.4 was still kind of hard. There's still people, like, it was better than before, but people would still burn out, and it's just...
you had to use tungsten. If you weren't using tungsten, then you weren't enjoying yourself very much.
Tungsten?
Yeah, this was 1.8.4, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to think which world that was. I remember I used to only use tungsten and iron, because everything else was like not worth using in my opinion. And everyone I spoke to that played, they all just used tungsten. Like we used to, it was like a currency. It was kind of like what Chrome is now.
Okay.
Everyone wants it,
Yeah.
Because tungsten was like the overall like best ratio of durability to strength.
And I guess best ratio to rarity also, because it wasn't
Yeah,
super
and
rare.
it wasn't super rare. Yeah, so it's kind of like steel has replaced the niche that tungsten had.
Yep.
Now, whereas everyone wants steel now, but everyone wanted tungsten, and steel was a worse iron.
Yeah, steel.
Yeah,
I don't.
steel is like a much better iron.
I don't remember how I had it very well, but
it was way more durable. It was like double the durability, but like 3 times slower. So it was really not worth using.
Oh yeah, it was slower than original iron, because it was basically supposed to be, all it was back in that time was just reheated iron.
Exactly, yeah, because this was the whole. This was before the brick furnace, which is why alloys were kind of messy. Where you had like a hot system where you would
hot ingots and you craft those together.
And
that's just because I didn't know how to make those.
Yeah, it was really weird, but it kind of worked, but it wasn't balanced.
Yeah, it wasn't.
In a bad sense, it was like everything needed to be buffed rather than nerfed.
So, Yeah, 1.8.4 was also a mess, and it still had things like inventory lag. It was better with lag, but still had inventory lag, which was awful.
Yeah, that was really bad, especially if you were making a stack of anything.
Yeah, I know on the American side, because I was hosting the server, like just making stacks of stuff was easy. It was moving things around in a chest that was brutal. But I know in the European side, like even just crafting chests or crafting stacks of stuff was awful.
So you never felt the pain of like making a stack of something?
No, I did not.
That took a really long time. That took like up to 2 minutes.
Yeah, I remember when I first fixed that in 1.8.5 and released a server version with, I think that was Dev C when I first fixed that. Like Chris joined the server and crafted a stack in like 2 seconds. He was like, "What has happened?" He's because that was a bug that just was in New Frontier Craft forever. Let's see.
I mean, I thought NFC was dead for a while because updates were slow, and then there was the whole like a lot of content wasn't working. Like books, if you threw it on the ground, it disappeared.
Yeah.
You could open it back up, and there was nothing there. The weird hard drive based lag thing with item crafting was dreadful.
So
like that was really bad.
1.8.4 was still just a total mess because at the same time I just wanted to get it out because I was so sick of testing, and I found something like I got to a point where it was good enough that I just released it.
Yeah.
And that's not how you want to release things.
It was a good choice though, because it meant that people could
play it again. It was able to grab some people's interest again, but still was not good. So yet again, I found myself going on the journey again to rebalance the game because 1.8.4 was still bug ridden. It still wasn't quite balanced correctly, and it was another long year of just slow development and a lot of random videos. But this time it was more consistent because on the Quizstone channel we just posted random series or very random short series of stuff, whereas on the New Frontier Craft channel from 1.8.4 to 1.8.5, I just posted videos of my face talking about old Minecraft stuff and ideas for New Frontier Craft. Because, I didn't have any recording partner at the time. I had Joey, but I forget what happened. I think it was just because I was at college. I wasn't able to get with him too much. So, after, in the period of time going into college and being in college, there's a radical change at just the core of who I am. I reconnected with God. I learned life was not about me. So I finally put on my man pants, dug into New Frontier Craft development again, and I took criticisms from all sides of how the game was instead of just focusing on what I had learned through my experiences of Minecraft. And ended up building the best update we've had in the history of, well, I guess my life. It's New Frontier Craft 1.8.5. And yeah, it's beautiful. I love 1.8.5.
And a lot of research went into balancing stuff.
Yeah, not only that, but like this was, the update we launched with because it felt so great. And we were prepared. I had paid people. I had paid a couple of people to test New Frontier Craft. I paid Joey, like he tested the world like from nothing to diamonds like 10 or 12 times during the later stages of development there for 1.8.5, and that got in a lot of good data. Some people did it for free.
I didn't do it for free.
It was no problem. I just gave you like a $7 thing on Steam.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were ready. What else happened? Like 1.8.5 is definitely going to be another golden age. It has been sort of a little golden age as the server's been active. It hasn't really gone inactive at all since the launch. It's died down a little bit, but we're still getting new people, as you can see.
2 people have joined since the start of this.
During the weekend, we still normally get up to 7 people online for like a solid hour or two.
Yeah, that's true.
Every weekend, like that's not just one weekend.
And it seems to be growing. Recently, I found that it's not slowing; it's growing slowly.
It's growing slowly, is what it's doing.
I'm
not super focused on growth either. Like you saw the other day, I posted a stream of me developing New Frontier Craft, because
Yeah,
I really
more
need to
of that.
set someone in our community to be like our main grower, and maybe that would be you, I don't know. Because
Yeah,
I
possibly.
really want to go back to development, because that's just what I'm built for. I'm not really built for trying to spread the word of New Frontier Craft. So I just had this itch to develop again, so I decided to start developing again. And dude,
Yeah.
I've totally implemented upside down stairs. Like they're totally in the game now. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's really nice. I saw that happen live, which is quite exciting.
Um,
But
so
one thing I think would be quite nice. I mean, I've done it myself, just not very well. Is if we get some good designers, so like looking at Indie Chief, to make texture packs NFC, and then we just plaster them everywhere. Uh, that kind of it applies to the beta community, and it also applies to the NFC community.
yeah,
Because people who play beta are like, oh, cool, like new texture packs.
yeah. I guess you
Beta,
totally could use a New Frontier Craft texture pack for beta, because
yeah,
it's just
it'll be the same.
it'll be
The
the
only
same.
thing I personally found was powered rails will be copper. That's it.
Yeah.
But you could get around that by like making them look different rather
I
than
mean, you could
making
just make them
like
look
copper.
gold. I mean,
Yeah,
they
oh, yeah, exactly.
yeah. Um, let's see. Yeah, other stuff that just like is great about 1.8.5 so far is, I mean, the server has serious anti-griefing procedures. We've not had one grief issue at all so far. I mean, the closest thing you could get was when we all kind of freaked out a little bit about spawn, and I still don't really know how to fix this bug.
Oh yeah.
It's getting me angry, but like you can break stuff in the wilderness around spawn, but you can't place things. So it's just like people can come in and break stuff and not place it again, like the wheat. But that's the worst
Yeah.
we've gotten so far. That's nothing. That's nothing. So we've had no griefing issues because of the setup.
Someone stole half my tree and then put a sign down saying I stole half your tree. Yeah, really weird. So whoever that was, what's your game, dude? What's going on with that?
I mean, we've got an active community to help New Frontier Craft's development where you guys can. That's just great. We've got a second developer who sometimes chips in, Onyx. We've got an automatic installer, which is huge. And our videos are a lot more cleaned up and professional, like this podcast and our sick ad. Like, this is New Frontier Craft. I sometimes, if I feel like unmotivated about New Frontier Craft, I will go back and watch that video and be like, okay,
That
I
is a
gotta
really
get back
nice
to New
ad,
Frontier Craft.
especially with the slow mo cut in the cave. That looks really nice using the soul sound.
Yeah.
You should also make a what's in NFC video. I think that's due around now. Just a kind of like overall overview, like what's in the game so far.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that as a
Content
podcast,
wise.
but I guess that's not really a podcast.
You could do, but I think it'll be better for a
Yeah,
video,
you
and then you can
that's-
pin it
that's
as your trailer. So anyone that goes on the NFC channel, the first thing they see is like what is actually the mod. So a lot of people join because it's beta. They don't join because it's a mod, and it would be kind of cool if people see like exactly what's in the game.
Yeah, but the one thing I'm really happy about recently with 1.8.5 is my new recording partner, Evan. Like,
Yeah, that's been going well.
we work really well together. I kind of know him closer than Quentin in terms of how long we've known each other. Like, I know I met Quentin back in like first grade, which is insane to think about. But we never really became close friends until like fifth grade, and Evan and I were actually close friends since second grade. So we've been closer friends for a long time, or a longer time. So I mean, it's insane to think about that Evan and I have considered each other best friends for like, I don't know, 12 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a long time to know someone.
Um,
Because
yeah,
I've known Regency since about 7-8 years now,
yeah,
and I feel like I've known him forever. But
yeah. I've known
he's
Evan
known
forever
for
too.
12 years, yeah.
Yeah, I still remember the first day meeting him was second grade. He was a new kid at our school, and our teacher told us that the person sitting behind our desk was our partner in some sort of math thing. And he turns around and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" I remember that's
Yeah,
like,
that's weird
That's
how
my
that works
first
out.
memory of him.
But It's
So
weird how like such small things can affect your life, like the butterfly effect and all that kind of stuff.
so yeah, this I really wish we would get another personality in with Evan and I, because Evan and I are very similar in our personalities, and I want someone to contrast us. But I really like Evan because he's also like, he really wants to connect to the community, whereas I just I'm actually a little bit more standoffish about connecting with the community because I want to be the developer.
I mean,
Um,
maybe he could help with the whole advertising and contacting people and being like, "Hey, what's
yeah,
up?"
he
So,
could. Um,
if he wants to, then
Yeah, I mean, you can see in like the videos, he's like, he always says something that is community related. Like, if we get to 500 subscribers, I'll do this, this, and this.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
jump. Yeah,
I just never do that stuff. So that's something I really like about Evan. At the same time, like when we were doing our Discord chat, like at one point he was posting Snapchat pictures of me, and he was like, "Dude, follow me on Snapchat." I'd never do something like that.
yeah.
So that's something I like about Evan because he's a lot more of a public figure.
You guys should get Indie Chief in the recording, even if it's just one.
Yeah, you know what? That would be a pretty good idea.
Just because he's been doing it for ages. Well, he's done it in the past with you guys before.
Yep.
I've never personally done one. I don't think, probably because of time zones.
Um, yeah, well, I guess that's pretty much, that has led us from the beginning of New Frontier Craft up until today, and that's another hour-long podcast. So I went on longer than I expected.
Yeah, you might have to clip some stuff. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
might have to clip a couple things of us just chatting about current events and whatnot. But yeah, it was cool to just kind of recall everything leading up to now. Like, New Frontier Craft had such a weird and shaky past, and then once we hit 1.8.5, like, things have solidified so much.
Yeah, it didn't have the best of histories. It went from like a small, like mod that was just kind of like a secondary secret server for trusted people kind of thing,
Yep.
to a kind of like forgotten mod, like no one spoke of it, very few people on the server, and now it's quite big.
Yeah.
I feel like now it's decently popularized.
I mean, I feel like if I do nothing from here on out, the server will continue to grow on its own, is what I legit feel like. I shouldn't do that, but that's how it is right now, really. So that's really cool to see that I can really start going to be into just the developer position as to the public figure, because that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if I'm going to add this in. I might chop this out depending if it sounds dumb. But I just briefly talk about Patreon, as that's going to be a recent thing. I do want to set that up. And I'm trying to think of, rewards I could give people from subscribing to the Patreon, because I really don't want to keep paying for New Frontier Craft. I'm about to have to pay another $10, and that'll add our total up to over $450 of spending on New Frontier Craft. I'll probably just make a separate video for this. I don't know. Maybe I'll just chop this out.
No, I think it's a good idea. It needs to be talked about, really, because it's not so much that you're asking for money, it's more that you're spending so much money that it'd be nice if some of it was repaid.
Yes,
It's very unlikely that the money you get from Patreon will be more than what you're currently spending. It's very unlikely that'll happen.
Yeah, at least for now. I'm really in a low area of spending because, again, I do not want to spend more on New Frontier Craft. And again, if you heard that total, I've currently spent, and I will be, once I pay the next server bill, which will be in a few days.
It's over 500.
The
right?
total,
It's
it's not over 500. It's going to be over 450.
It's 450. Okay, yeah.
But I mean, that's still, that's like
still a lot of money.
me working for like 2 weeks straight. So
Yeah.
on part-time job, but still, that's like all the money I make on a part-time job for 2 weeks. So yeah, that's how much I've spent on New Frontier Craft in total, granted. But if I were to get a lot more income, I would totally be spending more money on, like, paying people to do things, because I could tell someone, be like, all right, you're going to be the public spokesperson, go out there and spread New Frontier Craft. And they might do it for like an hour or two, and then just kind of like do it here and there. And that's been a very common theme if I just tell someone, if they're like willing, but they don't stick to it because they're not getting too much out of it. So
In my opinion, you shouldn't pay your friends, because friends will get away with stuff. You want to pay people that you can just say, hey, you haven't done this, you haven't done that.
Yeah, I mean, I trust my friends enough that I mean, Joey, I've actually paid him a total of like 200 from all the testing he did for me. Like, I mean, he would
Yeah,
seriously
he's done a
test
lot,
for
like-
like 8 hours straight.
And he's added a bunch of map generation stuff as well, and that takes a long time. That's another thing that we could pay
Yeah,
people to do.
he has. At first, I had no idea what you were talking about, but yeah, I've
Yeah,
paid
sorry,
him,
I mean the procedural buildings that were added into NFC.
yeah, I paid him for doing that because that's also monotonous. Like, it can take 2 hours of you just typing
Yeah,
numbers.
you briefly explained it to me, and I was already like, yeah, I'm already done with this.
So,
It's so complicated.
Yeah,
it's not even
it's-
complicated. It's just like brain damaging.
I mean, stuff like that I'm not doing right now because I do not want to spend more on New Frontier
Yeah,
Craft.
oh
But
my
that
God, dude.
totally got more things done, which is why I also really want to open a Patreon. Like, it's seriously, for a long time, it's just going to be the money that you guys give me will go straight back into New Frontier Craft by
I mean,
promoting
you can
people
just
to
go
build
on
stuff.
Fiverr and be like, hey, any guys know basic JavaScript? Like, help me code in
Yeah, yeah,
buildings.
stuff like that.
Because that's something you don't really need much brain power to do, but it's very time consuming. So you can just find someone on Fiverr.
Yep. So, hey,
don't
wait,
know.
I gotta write that down. Fiverr? Is that just like where people go just to do like brief stuff or something?
Yeah, I think it's either £5, which is like around $6.50 ish, or it might actually just be $5. It might be an American site. It's Fiverr spelt without an e, so it's just like like FIR, and then no, sorry, FRVR.
Yeah, I mean, I could also just pay people within our community because stuff like that where it's just monotonous work.
Yeah,
Yeah, just pay some of you guys. I'm sure you guys would do that. And
it's famous for like plugins and stuff. Like if you ever need a plugin on any game, you normally like a custom one. You normally go on Fiverr. That's the only reason I know it.
yeah, I'll definitely have to check this out. What else was I going to say related to Patreon? Oh, one idea I've had for, I think as I said, I'm going to have 2 tiers for the Patreon. One is just the super subscriber, and one of them is the dedicated Patreon. And the super subscriber is $2.50 a month. Dedicated Patreon is $5 a month. And I had an idea for the super subscriber, and I think what I want to do is I'll do like a New Frontier Craft stream once a week that is public, but I'll do whenever I'm working on New Frontier Craft outside of that, I'll stream it, but it'll be private and only super subscribers could watch that.
Yeah,
So-
that's quite a good idea. But
Yeah,
I
it's-
still think that you should have a lot of public
Yeah, I know.
streams of coding.
I know it's everything else would be public. I really don't want to make anything else private because that's us actually showing off stuff. And I just had the idea of, maybe when I stream stuff, which isn't as important, it's cool to watch, and that's why I think I would do it for a super subscriber. But just once a week where you don't have to be a super subscriber, you can just watch it. I think that'll be all right.
Yeah, that's good. As long as it's viewable to most people, because it is a really interesting, and it's a quick way to get feedback as well. Because people
Yeah, it
see
is.
it, they see what you're doing, and they're like, "Hey, this is a nice idea. What if this?" What
Yeah,
if
which
that?"
is also why, someone who's willing to pay for New Frontier Craft, getting instant feedback from them as I develop would be also,
yeah.
I think that
yeah,
would be...
it's stronger than like a random guy who just
Yeah.
like somehow found the stream.
So, yeah, I've had that idea. And then for the, dedicated Patreon, or patron.
I think it's Patreon. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I'm not
Patreon.
sure.
You would have a chance of getting in a podcast with me, which I think that would give us an idea of who is willing to go into a podcast instead of us just picking a random guy that I think
Yeah,
is
it's just
cool.
a random comedian. Yeah.
So I think I'm excited for that. And at the same time, I'll also be giving those people money on server for being a person who supports me on Patreon.
Yeah,
And-
I think that's a good idea. To
Yeah.
give them server cash.
Because then you could spend it on admin shop or other people's shops, and you could build stuff, and then from that, I feel like the public server is going to really, once there's other servers out there, is really going to turn into a just kind of like where people come to build safely. Like, it's not really going to be a place where people come to kind of hang out with their friends, because it is a little bit rigid in that area. Just because of factions and there's borders everywhere.
Yeah, I mean you can ally, but it's still not a perfect system.
Yeah,
It's just a safe system.
it's just a safe system. Yeah, that's its goal. So the main server will kind of be like for contests, pretty much. I feel like that's
Yeah.
where it's going to go. It's just
And the thing is, I don't
build
know
cool stuff
too
in
much.
contests.
But if someone brought this to my attention, because I can just F bypass and it's fine, which I probably shouldn't do. But when mining, if you hit someone else's land, there's not much you can do. Like you can go around it, but that takes forever.
Yeah, that's true.
Because what I do, I just bypass it because I'm too lazy. I probably shouldn't do that. Sorry, but because of that, because I'm right next to spawn, and because our group is like 7 people, we do cause some problems with that.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
we are just a huge amount
Yeah,
of people.
again,
with a
it's
huge
just
amount of
it's just
land.
kind of an imperfect system. I'm not too sure how I'd solve that.
Yeah.
Well, I think this has been a solid podcast.
It's
So-
been more of a conversation than a podcast, I feel.
Yeah, I mean that's kind
gone
of
everywhere, but that's good. That's
kind
good.
of what a podcast is, really.
Yeah, just there wasn't much
conversation with a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
So, thanks for being with me today, Space, and
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
I hope to see you on that server.